Hi, everybody. This is Kathy L. Murphy, the Pulpwood Queen, playing Teresa today. I've got my travel camera all ready. I don't have on white socks and sandals, but I have my travel scarf from the States. I have my Charleston bag. And what's really great about it, inside, I have Boop and Eve's road trip. Yay! Because tonight, everybody, we have Mary Helen Sharif here, who is an author and who runs, along with these other authors, the Bookish Road Trip blog. It's a blog site. I recommend everybody to join. But here's the deal. Before we even get started and let Mary talk, I'm going to take my sunglasses off now. I want to talk to her about some things I found out on Breathless Bubbles and Books this week that I did not know. You all, she has an educational background that just blew me away. So without further ado, welcome, Mary. I am so thrilled. You're on vacation, which is
why I'm in a weird room with a sailboat bedspread behind me.
And tell us where you are.
I'm in Sunset Beach, North Carolina. It's actually one of the places that they go on their road trip in the book, but my family vacations here every summer. We get like 10 cottages and take over the beach. It's kind of fun.
10 cottages?
10 cottages. It's between 80 and 120 people every summer. And so like I have relationships with third cousins and, you know, sometimes it's hard to figure out how we're all related, but it's fun.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
That is really cool. I mean, it's always wonderful to get together for our online International Pulpwood Queens and Timber Guys book club meetings, because I can't hardly believe the things that I learned just from this week-long, featuring you, showcasing you as an author. What I have found on Breathless Bubbles and Books is the story behind the story. And, just like Grace Salmon, I was just on her radio program for the storytellers. That's really what we are. We're a community of readers that's sharing our stories, and we're all on the same page, whether you've got a podcast, a blog, you're a singer-songwriter, filmmaker. We all are sharing our stories. So I want to know more about, and this is not bragging, you all. We just need to know this information because it's absolutely amazing. Mary was a teacher. And tell us a little bit about your educational background.
Oh, okay. So I went to University of Virginia undergrad, and I majored in psychology there. And I thought that I was going to go into human resources and do like employee relations and that sort of thing. And I did get a job for a year working in human resources, and I liked it, but I guess I had a moment of like clarity or something where I thought, I really feel like I want to be with kids. Like I really wanted to teach. And so I went back to school and I got my master's in education from Old Dominion University. And then the best part about that was for the 5 months of my student teaching, I got to do that in Wiesbaden, Germany, because there's a big military presence in Norfolk where I was going to school. And so they had like the connections to make that happen. So I was on an army base teaching fourth graders. And then on the weekends, I could like go travel around Germany, and Wiesbaden's very centrally located. So like we went to Paris for one long weekend, and for spring break, we went to Greece, and it was an amazing experience. It had a free place to live. Now I spent tons of money traveling that I didn't have. But
we all do that.
But it was really fun. And, it was like kind of like you could grocery shop at the PX. So like I could get the things that you're used to eating at home, like peanut butter, but then like I could walk 5 minutes and I was in Germany.
Oh my God.
So I felt like I had the best of both worlds, like 1 foot in America-ish. And then a few steps away, I was in another country that was awesome and cool. And I was young and carefree, and, it was fun.
That's amazing. And I found out you're from Virginia Beach. Is that where you're
from? Yeah. So I grew up in Virginia Beach, which is why I ended up going to Old Dominion in Norfolk, because I could live at home when I was, doing the classes and stuff. And then, so then I taught for 8 years full time. I taught 5th grade, and then I taught middle school, where I mostly taught 7th grade social studies, but a little bit of English, although I admit, which is an awful thing for a writer to say, but I really actually like teaching social studies better than I like teaching English. Mostly because the kids don't like reading and writing. And so it was like, it felt like a dog and pony show to try to talk them into liking the things that I liked. And it's really hard to teach grammar. Anyway, I like teaching social studies. I like history. I think I probably should write a historical fiction at some point because I do like that stuff, but I'm scared that I'll get something wrong. And so I've been afraid to try it.
Do it.
I should. And then after 8 years, I had my first child, and I thought that I wanted to be home for just the first couple of years. And I was in a lucky enough position where that was kind of possible. And I also had by then discovered that I wanted to be a writer. And I thought, well, I'll stay home with a baby and I'll write. Yeah, Kathy's laughing because that idea didn't really pan out like I thought it would. In addition to a baby and then 2 babies being a lot and lack of sleep being hard, I also had some postpartum depression issues. So those first couple of years, the writing didn't really happen. I mean, I'm not saying I never wrote, but it didn't really happen. And so by the time my daughter, the second child, was in preschool and I was starting to kind of get my swing back on, that's when I said, okay, well, my kids are at preschool. I'm going to commit that as my writing time. And that's when I started writing Bookish Road Trip. So I did it during preschool.
That's incredible, because I know raising my 2 daughters, running a bed and breakfast, working in a bookstore, doing all this, I always wanted to write. And I also wanted to finish going back to school, but then your children take top priority. And so are your kids big readers?
No, they don't like it.
Seriously,
it's heartbreaking sometimes. My oldest is dyslexic. And so you too, Kathy? Okay. Well, anyway, I think that's a big part of that journey. And, I hold out hope. He's actually a good reader right now, but still doesn't, still finds it laborious. So I'm hoping that maybe one day he'll discover books. He loves stories. When he was little, I read to him all the time and he loved that. But he's a teenager now. That would be not something he wants to take part in.
Oh, stop. I read to my kids when they were teenagers, and let me tell you a book to read.
What's that?
Miss American Pie. It's a Pulpwood Queen book. It's a photographer who was getting ready to do another exhibition, and she thought she'd look in her parents' attic in Louisiana for her old diaries, and she found them.
Okay.
She published them verbatim. Of course, she edited, but she did this from the time she was 13 till she was 18, and she published them verbatim. And I had all the theater kids in my shop one day. They were taking turns getting crazy hair colors and everything. And I said, okay, I handed the book to one of the kids and I said, start reading. And they go, oh, I said, start reading this book. And by the 3rd page, they were laughing so hard. They were on the floor, and then they begged me to let them have the book so they could finish it.
Nice.
What I was a children's book manager for years, and what I have learned with kids that say they don't like to read, first of all, get them tested, make sure they don't have disabilities, but maybe audiobooks would be the route to go.
Yeah, he does.
I highly suggest. How old is he?
He's 14.
Gary Paulson, man, get him reading. Get those.
I like that. That was a good book. Gary
Paulson. I used to go to the juvenile detention center and read to those kids. And they loved Gary Paulson because, he's not always politically correct and he does really extreme sports. So they loved it. But give me a minute with your son. I bet you I could find a book that he liked. Now, let's get back to the story. So from there, well,
I guess I jumped over, like, while I was teaching, I discovered children's books, and I think I myself went from reading like little kid books to reading adult books, and the YA market maybe existed a little bit in the 80s, but not really. And so I, as a teacher, all of a sudden discovered all of these amazing middle grade and YA novels, and so that's what I decided I wanted to write. And so Kathy Ramsberger, that's when I went to Holland I did my graduate program there on writing for children and young adults.
Oh,
And so I did that, while I was still teaching, and I finished it up when my first was a baby. And so that was my plan. And when I started writing this, so I've written like 3 middle grade books that like sit on my computer and no one's ever seen. And then I decided to write this book, and at first it was going to be a YA novel, and it was really going to be Eve's story. And Eve was younger than she ended up being in the final thing. But I started giving her grandmother more scenes where her grandmother was the voice or point of view character. And then I loved grandma and grandma like kind of took off. And so it ended up being, they were like dual protagonists. And that's kind of a hard sell for a young adult novel, to have grandma be like such a strong voice. And so I decided to make Eve just a little bit older. And so now I call it women's fiction, because it's a very young woman and an older woman, and they're on their journey. But I think it's a coming of age story, certainly for Eve, but I think it is for Boop too. Like, to me, like Boop does a lot of growing and learning in the novel and kind of rediscovering who she is, or who she is now. And I think, I think it's limiting to think of coming to age as only being something that a teenager does.
wow.
So I really, enjoyed the Boop character. I enjoyed writing someone who was flawed and funny and warm. So anyway, so I started that when my daughter went to preschool, and then it took forever, and then it got published. That's the short of the story.
That's an amazing journey. They've got these new things now called book, bloggers. It's called there's a certain name for it, but they do these like comic book pop-ups, wow, whatever. I think we need Overachiever. Overachiever. You're amazing. And I would love to read those 3 books.
Oh, well, the first one is really bad, so no one should ever read that. I tried to fix it a few years later, but it just couldn't salvage it. The second 2 probably have hope, but they would take some heavy editing. So I would have to get to a point where I was like ready to dig into those again.
A lot of people think children's books are easy. It's the hardest thing in the world, because you've got 32 pages in a picture book to tell a story in a way that is so engaging that kids never forget.
These aren't even picture books though, Kathy. I don't think I could do a picture book.
I'm working on one. I've decided to do one, and
that's exciting.
I worked on a painting, and when I got it done, I go, this is a story. And I thought, I'm not going to get rid of this painting. I'm going to make this the cover of my book. And I wrote a children's book a long time ago, and it sucked. I mean, I sent it to one of my good friends who's a children literary agent, but I can, I know some people in that business that could really help you. And, Karen Harrington wrote a YA book, and Pat Conroy heard her speak at Girlfriend Weekend, and he called her up and he said, young lady, that was a great story. How can I help you?
Oh,
and
how neat.
Mentored to her.
Nice.
Can you imagine having Pat Conroy say, I want to help you on that book?
No, I cannot.
He did that for a lot of people, a lot.
Yeah.
This was someone I knew personally. She lives in Dallas. She'll never forget it. But that's why we have the Writers Club. We're all mentoring for each other. So maybe we'll break into groups later, Robert, and we'll start some writing groups for different genres as we proceed with our writing club, because I think that'd be so helpful to bounce off your ideas. I had Robert Gwaltney, who's in the middle and who's my co-host for the Book and Film Club. Our very first writing club, we had his writers group in Atlanta. That would be, do you have anybody around there that is children book author?
I do. And I was in a writing group for a while with a bunch of children's book authors. And then when Boop and Eve, after I got through a draft and it was women's fiction, and I started working with some other writers, like more like beta readers, I decided to stop doing the critique group, because it is such like, here's like, I'm looking at these 10, 20 pages and it's so focused. And we had been through the book that way, and that was great, but I wanted bigger picture feedback at that point. But I'm working on a new book, and I think it's going to be a YA. I just changed my mind because it was going to be grown up, but now I think I'm going to go back to my roots.
Well, I want to hear about that before we do that. I was going to put you on speaker view. Dang, why didn't I do that?
I don't need to be on speaker view.
You sure? Anyway,
Sure.
well, I want the focus to be on your story. So a YA book, I think that's wonderful, because I'll tell you, one of the best books I ever read was by Pulpwood Queen author Judy Christie, called Wreath. It was a YA book. It was phenomenal. And then she did a series based on it about a little girl who ended up being homeless. Her mother died of cancer and she had nowhere to go. So she went and lived in a junkyard. It is the best book. And I know it's for teens, but all of us in the book club, that when that book came out, that read it, said, this is a great story. And it just so happened that when my daughters were in high school, the salutatorian of the class, her mother kicked her out and she was living in the back of her truck. You just don't know what kids go through today as teachers. I know Grace and you probably do, but I really commend you for those years of teaching service, because both of you, that is the hardest thing in the world these days. So you're working on this book, and how far along are you?
Well, I have a weird draft. So I was having a hard time writing it this winter. And I kept like writing pages and then throwing them away. And I think that's in part because I was so used to working with a manuscript that was so much further along that I was really getting frustrated with like my crappy first draft. But it's also because I don't think I knew what the story was. And so I would write a couple of chapters and be like, oh, wait, that's not what should happen. This should happen. And I had outlined, but like I was just scrapping the outline too. I mean, it wasn't like, so I was getting frustrated, and I was talking to my husband one night and I was like, I should, after complaining for a while, the conclusion was that writing dialogue is my favorite and easiest thing to do. And so I thought, what if I just wrote this book as a screenplay, not because I want it to be a play or a movie, although, I mean, really, sure, but not for that to be the goal, but because I can write the dialogue and get through the plot and develop my character. And if I have to throw away 2 scenes, it doesn't take that long just to write dialogue, So I've written the entire screenplay.
Wow.
But now I have to turn it into a book, and I don't know how that's going to go. So this is a writing process I've never tried. I don't know anyone else who's done it this way. And I don't know if it's going to work, but at least the screenplay went smoothly. And I feel like I have a plot and I have characters. But currently there's a lot of research that I need to do that I didn't have to do to write the screenplay. And so I'm working on through some research, and I think it's going to be a trilogy. And I think before I actually write the first book, I need to know what's going to happen in the second and the third, because I think I could write myself into corners I don't want to. So I need to at least outline the second and the third before I write the first. So anyway, these are a lot of stalling techniques that are keeping me from actually writing the book, but theoretically, it's going to make when I write the book go really fast. That's my theory.
One of the things, I can't remember who told me this one time, but they said so many of the best books have a narrator, somebody who, because you can get through a lot of plot quickly. Does anybody remember if this was at one of our things? But they said you can get through a lot of plot if you have it told from somebody's perspective. And this is not a YA book, but Church of the Dead Girls was told with a narration by the high school science teacher.
Okay.
And it made it fascinating because you've got all this dialogue and things going along, but then you've got this person who seems outside the story that's watching. And then they did that in To Kill a Mockingbird when they went and made it into film. And I think that's just very powerful. Just an idea, but I think you're on the right track. And then if it gets made to film, you're set.
Yeah, I already have a screenplay. Although I'm sure when I actually sit down to write the book, I'll change things. Like it won't end up following that, but at least maybe in large strokes it will. We'll see.
Well, everybody does that, and everybody that I've talked to, every author is their worst critic. So we all want to get it perfect.
Yeah.
And what we need to do is get it all down and then just break it down. But I'll tell you what I do. I know Robert does this. I read my text out loud. And if it doesn't sound right, because my mind is going so fast all the time, and so then when I read it back, I go, that doesn't even make any sense. Amanda texts me all the time on this stuff. She goes, that's not very clear. And I go, it's because I'm thinking so far of why I type pretty fast, but well, that's fascinating too. So this is your first actual book that you've
Yes, that's the first one, sitting in a bookstore. Yep. Mm-hmm.
That's, that in itself is a major accomplishment, especially today. It's got such a great cover too. I love the road and all the things, the colors, it just really grabs you. And then I want you to talk a little bit about Bookish Road Trip, because it's the most ingenious idea ever. I wish I'd come up with it myself. And so that's why I'm always trying to get people to join your blog site, because we're armchair traveling every day as we read these books, and we're going around the world with books, and we're going to places we never dreamed, walking in other people's shoes. Where did this concept come from?
So I had, in the winter before COVID, reached out to a couple of local authors suggesting, who had books coming out soon or had just recently had a book coming out, and suggested we starting a marketing cohort where we would like learn marketing from each other and support each other's marketing efforts. And so we had kind of planned to start that. And then our first meeting was like a week after the world shut down. And so we met on Zoom, and we did that virtually a little bit for a couple months, but then it started to become clear as we were talking, and 3 of the 4 of us had a book coming out in the fall, and the 4th was supposed to and just decided to delay. But we were all like, I'm having a hard time finding even virtual events. Like there's certainly none in real life, but like my local bookstore has like banded with other local bookstores, and they're getting like huge bestseller names to come and do their virtual events. They don't want me who they never heard of. And we all were kind of experiencing the same thing. We were having a hard time finding even virtual events. So we were like, well, maybe we could just start a Facebook group, and like that could be our way to connect with readers, and that could be fun. Sure. Okay. So what should it be? And then we took like a word from like each of our book titles initially, and it was going to be called like A Peculiar Road Trip with Coffee at Midnight or something ridiculously crazy.
I've got my coffee.
Yeah, there you go. And so we were like, that was it for a little while. And then we were like, this is like kind of weird and rambly. and then we were going to call it Writer Road Trip. But then we were like, well, we want to connect with writers, but really we want a group for readers. So if we call it Writer Road Trip, we won't get any readers there. And then we got to Bookish Road Trip. So we didn't really know it would take off the way that it did. I think it was a bit of like, hey, people who like to read are reading more than ever because they're stuck at home. And they also like to travel and they can't travel. And so it kind of like merged these 2 groups in a really lovely way. And it turns out that people who like to read and like to travel are really awesome people. And so it's created like this group of very authentic, cool people that I just have really, I really just enjoyed meeting people. And it's been, I'd like to say I'm a genius or that we were geniuses, but really I think we sort of lucked into it. And it's been great.
I think it's brilliant. It's brilliant because it's what we're doing. It's exactly what we're doing. And I think that championing something like that, and all of us partnering together to share, each one of us have a different aspect to it, that when you look at the whole, we got everything covered, man. We got, all the things that are happening by friending each other and making this community of readers. There is no reason why. I had an author come in and gave me a list one time of 4,000 book clubs in Dallas, Fort Worth.
Okay.
And that's low. Now, right now it's probably low, but because of COVID. But I thought Dallas has how many book clubs? I've started in Dallas over 40 chapters.
Wow.
What happens so many times is that it's kind of like the ocean, ebbs and flows. You know,
Wow.
once their kids start getting into high school and college, people drop out for a while.
Mhm.
Then they'll come trickling back in, you know, once they get the kids gone and stuff. But there's room for everybody. I mean, there is the only person, I put this up on Facebook, the only person we need to be in competition with is ourselves, to be better people, to be in better service for others. So I commend you. I think you're doing an amazing thing, as well as all the people here today. I when I started this book club, I had no idea we become the largest meeting and discussing book club in the world. That I do know that bring our authors into the conversation. You know, there's a lot of big book clubs like Oprah, but they don't really, they sometimes feature them on her show, but they don't bring everybody in where they can talk to the authors. That is important to me. And I remember when I first picked Alice Hoffman, I said, would you, you know, meet with some of these book clubs, or Jeanette Walls? And they said, sure. And I think Jeanette Walls talked to all my chapters for about an hour and 45 minutes.
Cool.
She wrote The Glass Castle.
Yeah, I read that.
Half row courses. And I had, you know, I've had lots of authors do that, but we're working, Mandy and Robert and Paul, who's my web person, we're working on a new way to even connect you better with the readers this fall. And we are going to announce that later on, but we want the authors to have more interaction with the book clubs. I talked to a book club leader today who runs 2 chapters, and they're just now starting to meet again, you guys. So, and now they're not knowing how long they can meet again, because now all these new, I feel sorry for the teachers that are going back to school. Can you imagine? I mean, masks, and they're behind because, you know, not all parents help their kids with their studies. I don't know. I think we just have to focus on what's working. And I've always loved to help first-time, first-book authors. So I'm very excited that you were one of them. And we will continue to do that. As Mandy and I are reading the books, that's what we're looking for. We're trying to help the authors that are unknown. Can you imagine if To Kill a Mockingbird came out today? I mean, really, would it actually have gotten published because it was a white woman writing a story set in the South about, you know, all kinds of issues, racism? They'd say, I don't know, she's white and privileged, and I mean, her dad was an attorney. I just think to myself that it is really unfortunate that we're trying to be more politically correct and we need to bring everybody into the picture. But I've always done that. I've always picked, you know, global, diverse, alternative lifestyle, controversial issues. I think it's really important that everybody has equal opportunity. But I also think people like you need to get first-time, first books, need somebody who's doing this. Most of the publishers tell me, you know, people get published, they say, well, I'm with a big house, but I'm nobody. I'm not touring or anything. Yeah. And I was a book publisher's rep. So I had an author. I said, they're touring you, right? And she said, no, I'm too new. I said, well, you know what? Let's put a tour together. And I took her around, and, you know, she ended up winning the National Book Award for her book when Zachary Beaver came to town. And it was a YA author, Kimberly Willis Holt. So she's had 2 of her books go to movies. You know, that's what we do. We try to help everybody that's behind us, lift them up a little bit more. And don't forget us when you get to the top, because we like a lift up too. So, okay, so you're on vacation, and what does your husband think of all this?
Oh, he's just used to me. You're going on Zoom. All right, fine.
Did he read your book?
Yes.
See, I always think that is a sign of a good marriage. If your
Yes.
husband read your book or your wife or partner read your book,
Yes.
then they're invested in you.
And he gave a lot of, I mean, he gave feedback as we went. He was, you know, he's a big reader. So from a reader's standpoint, and he's a really good, big picture kind of person. So sometimes I get caught up in the weeds, and he can sometimes help me find my way out. So he's a good counter, and he's a good, I do use him as a reader.
We all need those kind of people, and,
Yeah.
and you know, the Pulpwood Queens, we're a big support base. So you know, if you need anything, you reach out to Mandy and I. We're working so hard.
No, you guys do work hard.
You know, to get our database up to, you know, get everybody on the same page. COVID really set everybody. But when we get back out, you guys, we're going to be ready, man. We're going to be ready. We're going to be promoting you all like crazy. So what is your big goal in life? Have you set a goal for what would you like to have happen?
Well, I mean, in the writing world, I'm looking for the New York Times bestseller.
Yes.
So we'll see one day, maybe. And in life, I don't know, my husband and I have a list of places we'd like to travel. The one place I have really always wanted to go is Russia, and I haven't been there. But I studied it like in college and in high school, and not that I can't say anything anymore without sounding stupid, but the only thing I really remember how to say is I don't speak Russian. So that's it. But anyway, I would still love to go there. I think that's a fascinating country. And so we looked at maybe doing some river cruises or something like that in a few years. So we'll see. But thinking about traveling right now while we're not doing quite as much, though. I mean, I am at the beach this week. So there you go.
Very lucky. Take pictures. We want to see them. And we're looking forward to your blog tomorrow. And I just have enjoyed it so much. I think during COVID, I would like to know what you guys think. We've been meeting on Zooms, and we've been talking more. And then, of course, we had our online virtual. I think I've gotten to know more about the authors during COVID than I did when we were before. And I was going out and visiting book clubs and bookstores, book signings. But you know, when you go to these festivals, you're always in a rush. You're running to get across a campus to go to your book signing following your speaking engagement. And so we can sit at home this year all week long and watch all of us and talk to everybody. And I'm getting spoiled, y'all. This is pretty nice, because what you don't know is I have on my pajama bottoms because this is, you can only see, you know. So I gave away my big secret, but I am thrilled for you. And what do you think's where do you want to go with your Bookish road trips?
So, well, Grace down there, she's below me. I don't know where she is on your screen, but we've had Grace join our team, as well as two other lovely ladies. And so that was going to hopefully allow us to expand. And so we started an Instagram account last month, but that's just kind of getting going. So that'll be taking off more. And we're having a newsletter that's going to start coming out at the end of the month. So we're hoping people are going to sign up for that. I wrote the first essay for it. It's called Slog to a Gator Hole. So that's fun. But we're going to have a different author every month, although at some point we will probably recycle, but, you know, write an essay about their travels, and maybe their travels related to books, maybe not, and feature different books and things like that. So I think it's going to be a neat, fun thing to get in your inbox if anyone's interested. And we have talked about starting some in real life things, but you know, I don't know where we are with that at the moment. We were going to start like really planning in September, but we'll see.
I know, but when we are able to get back out, I had a couple authors put together. It was called oh gosh, it was River Jordan and Shelley Rushing Tomlinson. It was a Book and a Wing. What was the name of their tour? Anyway, they met at Girlfriend Weekend, and they got together and they went on a book tour and visited Pulpwood Queens.
Wow.
And what they did is they had the Pulpwood Queens host them, but
Mhm.
you guys get you a travel van, put all your authors in there and hit the road.
That'd be fun. That would be fun.
My first book came out, I took 5 of my book club members with me for a month and a half on my 27 stop book tour. Now that's back when Grand Central, which was one of the big 5, Hachette, that's back when, there was money. They don't have that, but Tawana and I twice went out on pop-up art and book tour. And we went all the way up to Connecticut and back, and we went out to Beaufort, to the Low Country Festival. And we've got to get you featured there. You'd be perfect,
Oh, that'd be fun. Yeah.
the Low Country Book Festival, which Mandy's going to be featured coming up, and
Cool.
Lauren Marino, and let me think. Oh, and the novel women authors are going to all be there. I wish I could be there, but it's virtual online. So you guys come to the Low Country Festival because our book club is helping fund that. So we want as many Pulpwood Queens there as possible. And anything we can do to help you, Grace, all your girls on the books. You're going to do a panel at Girlfriend Weekend, which we're going to give you plenty of time because there's 6 of you now in Bookish Road Trip.
7.
There's 7 of us. Yeah.
So you'll get an hour and a half panel, okay? We'll give you, because we're going to be spreading it out over a week. And if you can't sit and watch these all week long, Mandy and I are taping every one of them and making sure they're up on our YouTube channel so that you can put them up on yours, you can share them. It's all about, getting authors' books in the hands of readers and readers learning about your books. It's every day I get an email and go, oh my gosh, that author was fascinating. In fact, Eileen Sanchez is starting a book club with Prose and Pandemic just because of Isla Morley and her talk last week on Breathless Levels.
Cool.
So
Awesome.
it's the ripple in the pond effect. So what is there something you would like to share with everybody that I haven't mentioned that is important to you, or?
I don't know. No.
I have a question though.
Yes, right.
Uh-oh.
No, Mary and I, I'm really gifted to be over on Bookish Road Trip, but it's not like Mary and I get to chat a lot. And I was so thrilled last night. I got to an in real life book club, and those are few and far between, as any of us authors know. And it was great. They had all sorts of food from my book, and I was thrilled. And they said, so when is there a sequel? And I just went, and the immediate response, Mary, was, well, I have a friend who's writing another book, and she decided to write it like a screenplay. And in my mind, I don't have a sequel to my book, but if in a perfect world it went to Netflix, I could write episodes forever.
I hope everybody's watching this on YouTube, because every single one of our books should go to film, Netflix, Apple TV.
Absolutely.
Absolutely. In fact, I see all of your books. Yours, Mary, that would be, if
Perfect.
you haven't seen Atypical on Netflix, it's a teen, it's geared towards young people, but it's got parent involvement. And the young boy who is the main star is autistic.
Okay.
It's fabulous. I watched all of them, but that's what people are doing, is binge watching. So why shouldn't they make every single one of our Pulpwood Queen books? I mean, we could start our own studio,
Oh, wouldn't that be great? So my question to you,
resources, and we can say, hey, that's what, when First Wives Club came out, that's what all those actors, they were tired of not seeing older women, getting the roles of the film. So they pulled together and started their own production company. And it was Bette Midler and, Dying.
Oh, that was great.
Yeah.
So my question to Mary though was, how did you get that idea? And then how did you lace those, and you may not have at all thought about this way. In my mind, it was episodic. How did you get that? And how did you then weave it together? This idea that it's vignettes or it's a screenplay.
Okay, well, I didn't do that with Boop and Eve's Road Trip.
Yeah.
So I didn't do the screenplay thing with Boop and Eve's Road Trip. I'm doing that with the one I'm writing now.
Okay.
Boop and Eve's Road Trip, I guess it is kind of episodic. And I think, honestly, it happened a lot because I was writing it in Scrivener. And so like I was just looking at it like on a scene by scene basis, and it ended up making it kind of more that way than I think it would have naturally been if I had a Word document up and was writing it more free flowing. That's
So Scrivener helped frame your thinking. It's a tool I hear about all the time, but it's not a tool I use. So that tool helped you frame your thinking around the writing process.
Yeah, and I think like it'd be like if you were doing it in Word, but you only had one scene in each document, and then you had the document sort of threaded together. And so like each scene kind of has its own like little place. And I'm thinking that's probably in part why it is, but also like road trips are kind of episodic in and of themselves. Like you're at a place and there's like a framing around that. So I think the story lended itself because of it being on a road trip to that sort of writing too.
Okay, thanks.
Let's open this up to more questions for all of you too. Anybody have anything they want to share or ask? Yes, Robert.
So Mary, over the course from the point that you began writing your novel to the conclusion, how would you say that you've changed or evolved as a writer?
How did I change or evolve as a writer from beginning to end? I think the biggest, so I mean, I'd done an MFA and I'd had critique groups. But so I was used to getting feedback, but I got some feedback this time in this book when I thought I was done that was overwhelming, because it basically was, toss the book and write a new one, sort of what the feedback was. And at first I was sort of very resistant to it because I was like, well, I mean, that's a different book and that's not the book I wrote. And I don't want to do that. And so I took about 6 months of being like sort of mad and sort of whiny. And then I decided to try what they wanted me to do for a chapter. And well, the chapter was so much better than the original chapter. And so I did the rewrite. I put on my big girl pants and I did the rewrite. So I guess what I think the growth there is like getting past myself a little bit and like not being my own worst enemy, and being a little more humble in my receiving of feedback. And again, it's not like I was like nasty whenever I got it before, but I think it had always been done with a lighter touch. And this was like, no light touch. It was, this is wrong and this is wrong and this is wrong and you'll never get this book published like this. So no light touch, and but the advice was good advice and the book is a lot better for it. And I think that was a big growing up for me, was like,
it's still your book.
It is. The heart and soul of it is still there. It's just structured differently, completely differently.
And that's what we forget. Like when you think of that, it's like how you said, no, I'm not going to do it. This is the book. But then it's like, oh, but that is still your book.
Right.
After you did that. Yeah. It's like,
yeah. And maybe there's a better way to tell this story. And there was a better way to tell the story. And again, the advice was good advice. I just, kick in the butt.
I think it's hard to take. We see editing advice as criticism, And a lot of editors are really blunt. I mean, I had, my first editor, she said, okay, cut those 3 chapters and write 2 new ones. I was just like, what? Right? Those are gone.
Yeah.
And it broke my heart because it was the chapter about my children. It's my memoir. It was a chapter about my love of nature and my pets. And those are so important to me. They're going to be in the next book.
Okay.
That's, you know, that they're going to be, but they were trying to keep me to focus on literacy. So, you know, I understood, but I think we're not just one thing. We're lots of different things. So
Yeah.
you kind of know when to pick your battles, and that's what you learn when you write your first book.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
So
I stopped thinking about this screenplay, the dialogue thing. That is so interesting to me.
it is to me too.
I've never heard of that. I've never ever heard of anybody doing it that way. I can't wait to see how that comes to play for you.
Me neither.
Here's a great marketing idea. Do you have a theater group there in your?
I mean, there are local theaters, so.
When Karen Essex wrote her book, Dracula in Love, it's a Victorian story told from the victim of Dracula. We had 5 local theater groups, and we did a Victorian dinner, and everybody was to dress in costume.
Mhm.
And then I commissioned the local theater group to do a scene from her book.
Mm.
It was the coolest thing. People were just like, they just read from the book. They each got a copy of the book and they said, you're this person, you're this person, you're this person. It was fantastic. So it might be something you could do.
Yeah, I have a good friend who is an actress, and she lives in Canada now, but I did send a screenplay to her because I felt like that was the kind of medium she was used to reading, and that she would have maybe different kind of feedback than other people might. And she had great feedback, some really good suggestions and things like that. So I took that to heart. But then she also said, you should get, even if it's just like a group of friends together and have them read through it. Cause she's like, you're going to hear things and notice things that you wouldn't if you were just like reading it on the page. So I don't know, I might do that, but I might not, because again, it's not like this is screenplay is like one I think is ready for an actual director to pick up, right? Like I've never written a
great tease for your book. I mean, you know, book trailer, and it's never really been done. I think that would be.
Well, if it works, I have a process to sell. but if it doesn't, I don't.
Well,
you gotta think of a really cool name for it.
Yeah, that'd be fun. So yeah, it's an experiment. We'll see.
Yes, Kathy. Go ahead.
Mary, I don't really have a question, because I'm afraid if I ask you a question, I'm going to find something else that we have in common. It seems like there's so much we have in common. My best friend was from Virginia Beach.
Oh, really?
Yeah, she went to Hollins.
Okay.
I just wanted to say hello, and we've never seen each other even on screen face to face. I feel like I know.
Typed back and forth a bit.
Isn't this great? We all can meet each other. You know, my nephew lives in Virginia Beach, and also Kathy Heppenstall's sister, who we've had at Girlfriend Weekend many a times for their books, Becky Hellinger, lives at Virginia Beach. Her husband's in the military. They have 5 kids. Okay. So I feel like there's Virginia Beach connections everywhere. That's cool.
Well, I think with the military being there, a lot of people move through Virginia Beach, so that kind of makes some sense, maybe more than some places would be.
Her dad was a surgeon, but I did think of a question, and it's about your son's dyslexia. I'm wondering if that helped you write, made you more determined to write, because that's what it did for me. Or was there some pullback? I know because I was doing so much oral reading to my son, it took a lot of my time, and I just wondered about that. And I've got a little thing he used to tell in his Star of the Week speeches. It would say, "What does your mom do for a hobby?" And he would say, "She loves to play computer games," because in his mind, that's what I was doing.
That's really funny.
Oh my gosh,
that's funny. I think that the oral reading does influence. I mean, I have read a lot. I did it as a teacher when I taught 5th grade, especially, but that I continued to do it with both of my children. But you know, maybe more than other people would. I do think that amount of oral reading does filter how I read and how I write. I think that is true. I think one day I'm going to write a book that's going to somehow be related to dyslexia.
I hope you do, because I've thought of it too. We should talk about that.
Yeah, we
because
should. That'd be fun.
I even have a title, but it would be
Oh.
more about my son than dyslexia, and I don't have the educational degree. So
Mm.
yeah.
Yeah. So I think I need my kid to be grown up before I go there, I think.
Mine's almost 26. So
Yeah. And I think sometimes it's easier to be done processing or to be at the tail. Like, I mean, even like, you know, in my novel, Eve's processing is depression. I was sort of processing the postpartum, but I wasn't in it, you know, like I feel like when you're in it, it's a little harder to have the distance, but I think it is a good way to process some things. So for me, like writing about depression, I wasn't in the middle of being depressed, but I had just recently come out of it. And so it was a way to like sort of reflect on that and that experience and to grow from that. And I think, you know, I think with that idea of a book, I feel like I need to be a little bit further from it than I am at the moment. But I did teach
everything.
dyslexia
Timing
for
is
2 years.
everything.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And for me, like writing, like someone was asking me not too long ago, they were like, well, how do you decide what to write about? Like, what do you write about? And I think I guess now I've written 4 books. They're all super different. And in some ways it would seem like maybe I haven't found the thing I write about, but I think all of them were me processing something. Like, I think whatever my mental state is working through is coming out in these books. And so each book it's kind of processing different things in my world. And so the results are different, but it's still like me and how I'm trying to make sense of the world around me.
You know, Mary, you are creating a brand by Road Trip, Bookish Road Trip. I would keep that always in the back of your mind because there's, you know, that's what books are. You're traveling. If that has an underlying theme in your books, and the more you do it, yeah, it's going to get better.
Thought.
Yeah.
Yeah. Interesting thought.
Yeah. So I'm looking forward to your newsletter. I'll sign up.
Oh, good.
I'm
Go to bookishroadtrip.com.
And she's getting ready for her first anniversary too, right?
That's
Yep.
Yep.
Another
So that's next week. Mm-hmm.
You're just babies. You guys are just getting started. I mean,
babies, Kathy.
20. This is my 21st year. I feel like, okay, I'll be coming out soon with the walker. I've already had visions of dementia because I can't ever find my readers and all this stuff. So can't remember if I let the cat in or out, and then I'll call it, and it's standing behind me looking at me like, you let me in. Okay.
Yeah. Well, I've always been that way. So I have like, I don't know how anyone's going to know when I have it, if I get it, because I've always been kind of like, where are my glasses? Oh, they're on top of my head.
I have too. That's the hardest part, but we're really excited. So do you have an idea of when it's not going to be this coming year, it'll be the following, maybe?
Maybe.
You know what?
Road Trip took 6 years. 6 years is the last book. So anything shorter than that, I'm beating myself.
It took me 6 years from start to finish on mine. And this next book's taking me longer because I've just been too busy.
Yeah. Well, I'm hoping, here's my grand hope. I'm hoping that next month my kids go back to school in real life. And my husband goes back to the office in real life. And suddenly I have all day and no one there and I can write.
I'm praying for you.
I don't know how realistic this is. And we've also talked about maybe joining like a co-working space or something like that. So like kind of having a place outside of my house, but we haven't. I might do that.
Yeah, that's why so many people go to Starbucks and coffee houses, right? Because
I used to do that, but that hasn't been really available. So anyway, I don't know, but there's answers, and I have time-ish maybe this fall.
You look like you're about 22. I mean, I don't know how old you are, but you've
Oh,
accomplished a lot. I mean, you're young.
I am 45. I'll be 46 in 2 weeks.
You're
Yeah.
still just a baby.
And I have to tell you that I look younger on Zoom than I do in real life. I do like that about Zoom.
Yeah, I do too. I call it the fountain of youth thing.
There you go. Fountain of Youth is on the road trip too. There you go.
Yeah, yeah. Well, before we go, we want to just talk a little bit because this is going to go up being recorded and it's going to go up on my YouTube channel. Do you want me to send a copy so you can put it up on yours?
Sure.
Okay, I will do that. We wanted to talk about one thing before we go about the book club membership, because we have been going through everything and it's a nightmare because a lot of people were signing up under the wrong, book club members and their authors. And so, Mandy, maybe you could quickly, we've sent out a mass email to everybody to explain it, but we still have people not reading their emails or getting on social media. So I thought, well, maybe if we put something out there to the world on our YouTube channel about membership, but we just changed it again today, so it'll make it even easier. Do you want to explain the process, Mandy, of how we now just have what you just put up with the tier on the website?
It's just one, there's no international membership. It's just one author membership. And the problem is a lot of people joined under $30 for the regular membership. Well, that doesn't, when you filled out that form, it didn't have the space for all of the authors' stuff. Like, there's no way that we knew that they were author members. So, so we can't list them and talk about them and get them in and all this stuff if they're not joined as an author. And it was really complicated because somehow they couldn't be refunded. Well, if you paid $30 but you meant to do the $50 for the author, don't rejoin at $50. Give us all your author information. You're going to get that $30 refunded that you paid in error, because there's no reason for you to have paid for two memberships.
And we had stateside authors paying for international membership, which is considerably higher. So, and I don't always catch that they've done that if I don't know who they are. So then we find out as we're going through them, well, they pay for they live here in the United States. Why'd they pay for? Well, they just think international book club international membership. So we just decided that it's too hard. So, and anyway, that's what we've done. And it'll be, and we're going to put it in the newsletter and in the magazine. And we had a great feature on Mary in the magazine too, on the Bookish road trip. So everybody, please check out our magazine at readingnationmagazine.com and subscribe to our channel, because this fall, Robert Gwaltney and I are starting the Kathy L. Murphy Show, and we're going to be we're going to do it like a real talk show on our channel. So you need to subscribe so that you can get all the notifications. So everybody that's in our midst that are members are going to get featured, and Mandy's got all kinds of things going on with the magazine. She's working in
anthology.
And the anthology is coming along.
Y'all listen, we've got over 300 pages. And at first Kathy was like, oh, wait, it can't be too big, thinking, that nobody's going to, like a lot of people don't like to read a 400-page novel. These are
short stories.
A collection. So it's like, and we have y'all, now we have a couple of nonfictions. We have historical fiction, literary fiction, thriller, suspense. Oh, I mean, it's like Southern fiction, some Gothic. It is such a cool mix. I mean, it's going to be so much fun. I have so much fun when I'm adding it, and I'm just doing them as if they come. So it's all organic. Like, I'm not gonna, like, the first person that sent the story, that's the first story. I'm not like, it is like gonna be just organic.
Mhm.
And
And we
everybody that sent
basically,
a submission is like, they're so good. You know, so almost everybody that sent one is in there. So I think we have 30, I think it was 32 different authors. So it's like, and then it's so cool, like the book description, like the little excerpt description, and then the bios, everybody's is different because there were no rules. So some people have like a little short one, some people's are, you know, some people are longer, and even that's like just kind of shows the cool mix of authors that we got. So I'm really excited. It's
well, we're
fun.
doing it because a lot of authors do not have books coming out, and we want to keep their names out there. And it's really an advertising tool for all of our authors. We're trying to get you guys seen. And a lot of people will pick up a short story collection and go, hey, that was a really good story. I've never read their book. So,
Or they'll pick it up because they're like, oh, I love Mary. I want to get this. Mary's got something in here. And then they're like, hey, who is this Kathy? Who is that Robert? Man, I've got 3 favorite authors now. You know, it's like, that's what my hope is.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh,
Very
Claire's story is
excited about it.
beautiful. Like, I can't. I love it so much. I can't.
okay, any questions more for Mary before she goes and we get to see her blog tomorrow? I can't hardly wait. Anybody have, she's got a family, they're on vacation. So anybody else have anything to share or say?
Love your
All right.
book.
Go ahead,
Oh,
Robert.
good. Thanks,
Love
Robert.
your book. And I love first sentences. So I'm going to read yours.
Okay.
Boob loved her daughter to the moon and back, but Justine had a way of sucking the joy out of a room faster than a vampire bat. Was that always?
You got nominated
No.
for this award for
I
this
did.
one. And tell me about this award. I never heard of it. And we have 3 authors that are up.
It's brand new, so that's why you never heard of it. So Zibby Owens has a podcast called Moms Don't Have Time to Read. And she decided to do awards, and they're all like, she calls it like the things that people don't normally win awards for. So you know, one is like for best publicist, so writers could nominate their publicist. One is for like the best acknowledgement. One is, you know, it's all kinds of random
I
stuff.
love that. That's
Yeah, so it's
very
neat.
cool. So
And so I was nominated for best first sentence and best author newsletter. And then in October, she's planning to have an in-person live event in October in New York, where she's gonna like announce the winners.
aw, that's
Nice.
great. Well, get us the link so we can watch you win.
Yeah. You know, even if I don't, it's an honor to be nominated.
It is. It really is. And I'm thrilled that somebody's doing that, because those are all things that, you know, have value to readers. So good for you.
Yeah. And somebody else just asked if that was always my first sentence. And gosh, no, I had so many different first chapters. I had the hardest time trying to figure out where to start this book. Anyway, yeah, no, but I do like that first sentence. I'm kind of proud of it. So thanks for reading it.
Yeah, it's a great one. Yeah.
That was nice of you to share that. Okay, everybody. Well, thank you for joining again for Tuesday night online book club. Again, it's recorded. It will be up on my Kathy L. Murphy channel this evening. Mary, I will get that Google Doc to you of the video so you can put it on your website. And for those who don't know, Mary every month is letting me feature, she's interviewing me to feature all my books for each month to talk about them, and she puts it up on Bookish road trips, and she's kind enough to share it with me to put on the YouTube channel too. So I'll do the same. Anything I can do to promote you or anything. In fact, I'm going to be part of your birthday celebration coming
That's
up.
right. That's right.
I'm going to be doing a video, so stay tuned for that. That's coming up. And congratulations, you made it through your first year, your first book. Lots of firsts this year.
That's right.
So,
First pandemic. Hey, I'm just rolling in there.
well, I love you all. And until next time, don't forget this Saturday night, Robert Gwaltney and I are doing our book and film club. And I think we're going to do something really crazy, because we're doing a silent film. We're going to be discussing a silent film, and Ruthie Landis, who has all this Broadway theater background, has come up with this zany idea. We've been dressing up, so I got to get with her and figure out what exactly we're doing. Do you know, Robert?
Not yet. I'm
Well,
waiting.
I think I'm going to be silent, which will be a miracle. So you guys, if any of you want to come, email me and I'll send you the link on Friday. But it'll be Saturday night, 6:30 Central Standard Time, and we're watching the silent movie, The Wind, starring Lillian Gish. It's a 1920 film,
Around there,
21,
yeah.
something like that. And this is one of Robert's favorite films. I've already watched it. I have lots to discuss.
But you're going to do that silently.
Yeah, I'm in a big signing. I don't. It should be interesting, but I'm already working up my
He's going to a
outfit.
note.
I'm already working up my outfit. It's going to be priceless. So y'all have a wonderful Tuesday night. Thank you for joining me, and we'll be in touch. It's all about the story. Thank you, Mary. See you tomorrow on Breakfast.
Thanks for having me. Thanks everybody for coming.
Bye-bye.
Bye.